The theater lights were still bright, the chatter loud, when a small boy stepped onto the massive AGT stage carrying nothing but a shy smile and a dream far bigger than his worn shoes. In that moment, nobody in the audience knew his name, his story, or the weight he had carried all the way from a narrow street in the Philippines. But within minutes, that room and millions watching around the world would never forget him. Before the first note even left his lips, his eyes scanned the crowd, trembling slightly, and if you've ever rooted for an underdog, ever believed talent can rise from the hardest places, you were already hooked. And before we go any further, if stories like this move you, inspire you, and remind you why dreams matter, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because moments like this deserve to be shared. He introduced himself softly, his accent gentle, his voice barely louder than the hum of the audience. He spoke about growing up poor, about nights when dinner was uncertain, about singing not as a hobby but as a way to escape hunger, fear, and doubt. Music, he said, was the one thing that made him feel rich. The judges smiled politely, as they had seen countless hopefuls before, but there was something in his honesty that made them lean forward. When asked why he chose to audition, he paused, swallowed hard, and said he wanted to help his family, to prove that where you come from doesn't decide how far you can go. In the crowd, a few people wiped their eyes already, sensing that this was more than just another performance. As the music began, the boy closed his eyes, and the world seemed to fall silent. His first note floated out, fragile yet pure, and it landed straight in the hearts of everyone listening. It wasn't just the beauty of his voice, it was the pain, hope, and resilience woven into every sound. He sang as if he were telling his life story, each lyric shaped by struggle, each breath filled with longing. The audience shifted from curiosity to disbelief, then to something deeper, connection. People stopped recording on their phones and simply listened, afraid to miss even a second. Halfway through the song, his voice grew stronger, soaring with confidence that hadn't been there when he walked on stage. It was as if, in that moment, he stopped being a poor boy and became exactly who he was always meant to be. The judges exchanged glances, eyes wide, smiles trembling. One judge pressed a hand to their chest, another shook their head in awe. You could feel the energy rising, like a wave about to crash. This wasn't just talent, it was truth, sung from the soul. As he reached the final note, his voice cracked slightly, not from weakness but from emotion. The sound lingered in the air even after the music stopped. For a split second, there was silence. Then the audience exploded to their feet. Applause thundered through the theater, mixed with cheers and sobs. Grown adults cried openly, strangers hugged, and the boy stood frozen, eyes wide, tears streaming down his face, unable to believe what was happening. He bowed his head, overwhelmed, whispering thank you over and over as if the words could somehow hold him steady. The judges rose too, giving him a standing ovation that seemed endless. One spoke through tears, saying that they had heard many great voices, but few that carried such heart. Another told him that his performance reminded the world why music exists, to heal, to unite, to give hope. Then came the moment that changed everything. One judge slowly stood, walked toward the golden buzzer, and looked back at the boy. The crowd held its breath. With a single press, golden confetti rained down like sunlight, covering the stage in shimmering hope. The boy collapsed to his knees, hands shaking, crying openly now, as years of hardship melted into a single moment of joy. He thought of his parents, of singing in small rooms, of dreaming quietly because dreaming loudly felt too dangerous. And now, here he was, standing in gold, proof that dreams don't ask how rich you are, only how brave you are. The audience chanted his name, their voices lifting him higher than he had ever been before. As the confetti settled, the judges reminded him, and all of us, that no matter where you start, belief can carry you anywhere. His journey was far from over, but one thing was clear, the world had heard him, and it would never be the same. He walked off that stage not just as a contestant, but as a symbol of hope for every child singing into the dark, waiting for their chance to be seen. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you to keep believing, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful, inspiring stories. Because sometimes, all it takes is one voice to bring the world to its feet, and sometimes, that voice belongs to a boy who refused to stop dreaming. The theater lights glowed like a second sun, washing over the stage and revealing a boy who looked far too small for a place built for giants. He stood there quietly, hands clasped together, breathing slowly as if trying to calm a storm inside his chest. The audience murmured, some curious, some distracted, unaware that they were about to witness a moment that would stay with them long after the night ended. From the very first second he stepped forward, there was something fragile yet powerful in his presence, something that pulled people in without them realizing why. And if you've ever believed that dreams can rise from the poorest streets, if you've ever waited for a miracle to prove that hard work and faith still matter, then this was your moment. Before the music even began, hearts were already leaning toward him. And if stories like this move you, inspire you, and remind you why hope matters, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because this journey is one you won't want to miss. When the judges asked his name, his voice came out soft, almost shy, but honest. He spoke of his home in the Philippines, of narrow alleys filled with laughter and struggle, of mornings that began with uncertainty and nights that ended with prayers. He talked about his parents, who worked endlessly yet never seemed to get ahead, and about how music became his refuge when life felt too heavy for his young shoulders. Singing wasn't something he chose for fame, it was something that chose him when he needed comfort the most. The audience listened more closely now, sensing that this wasn't a rehearsed story, but a life laid bare. As he described singing in small gatherings, at family events, sometimes even on the street, his eyes lit up with a quiet pride. Those moments, he said, made him feel seen. They reminded him that even if he had little, his voice was something no one could take away. One of the judges asked what he hoped would happen if he won, and the boy hesitated before answering. He said he wanted to give his family a better life, to send his siblings to school without worry, to give his parents rest after years of sacrifice. His words were simple, but they landed heavy, and the room grew quieter with every sentence. When the music finally started, it was gentle, almost hesitant, matching the way his voice entered the song. The first note trembled, not from fear but from feeling. It carried the weight of years spent dreaming quietly, of songs sung in dim rooms where applause was replaced by silence. The audience leaned forward instinctively, drawn in by the rawness of his sound. This wasn't polished perfection, this was truth. And truth has a way of cutting through noise like nothing else. As the melody unfolded, his confidence grew. Each lyric seemed to unlock something inside him, freeing emotions he had held back for far too long. His voice rose and fell like waves, sometimes soft enough to feel like a whisper, sometimes strong enough to fill the entire hall. People in the audience felt chills race down their arms. Some covered their mouths in disbelief, others wiped away tears they hadn't expected to shed. In that moment, language, culture, and distance disappeared. There was only a boy and his song, and a room full of hearts beating in time with his voice. Halfway through the performance, something changed. The boy lifted his head higher, his shoulders straightening as if he had finally remembered where he was meant to stand. The fear that once clung to him fell away, replaced by a quiet courage. He sang not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever been told their dreams were too big for where they came from. The judges watched closely now, their expressions shifting from curiosity to awe. They had seen talent, yes, but this was something deeper. This was a story unfolding through sound. As the song reached its emotional peak, the boy's voice cracked for just a moment, and instead of weakening the performance, it made it stronger. That single crack carried years of struggle, of disappointment, of hope held together by belief. The audience felt it instantly. People reached for the hands of strangers sitting beside them, connected by a shared emotion they couldn't quite explain. This wasn't just entertainment, it was a reminder of humanity. When the final note echoed through the theater, time seemed to stop. The boy stood still, eyes closed, as if afraid to open them and break the spell. For a heartbeat, there was silence, deep, powerful silence. Then the room erupted. Applause thundered from every corner, rising like a storm. People jumped to their feet, clapping, cheering, crying openly. The sound was overwhelming, a wave of love crashing over a boy who had never experienced anything like it before. Tears streamed down his face as he looked out at the audience, disbelief written across every feature. He bowed his head, hands shaking, whispering words of thanks that barely made it past his lips. The judges stood as well, their applause just as fierce. One judge wiped away tears and spoke of how rare it is to hear a voice that doesn't just sing, but speaks. Another judge said the boy had reminded them why they fell in love with music in the first place. Their words poured over him like warmth, and he listened as if afraid they might vanish if he blinked. Then came the moment that changed everything. One judge slowly stood and walked toward the golden buzzer. The audience sensed what was coming and held its breath. The boy watched, heart pounding, unable to move. With a single press, the buzzer sounded, and golden confetti exploded into the air, raining down like a dream come true. The theater filled with screams of joy as the stage transformed into a sea of gold. The boy dropped to his knees, overwhelmed by the moment. He covered his face, sobbing freely now, as years of hardship, doubt, and quiet perseverance finally found release. In his mind, images flashed of his home, of singing under flickering lights, of his parents' tired smiles. All of it led here, to this moment, where the world had finally heard him. The audience chanted his name, their voices lifting him higher than he had ever been before. As the confetti settled, the judges approached him, offering hugs and words of encouragement. They told him this was only the beginning, that his voice had the power to change lives, including his own. He nodded through tears, still trying to understand how everything had shifted so suddenly. Just minutes ago, he was a boy with a dream. Now, he was a symbol of hope. Backstage, as the noise faded into distant echoes, the boy sat quietly, holding a piece of golden confetti in his hand. He stared at it as if it might disappear. For him, it wasn't just paper, it was proof. Proof that dreams whispered in the dark can one day shine in the brightest light. He thought of other children like him, singing into the night, waiting for a chance. He hoped his story would reach them, remind them not to give up. As the show continued, clips of his performance spread rapidly across the world. People shared his story, commenting on his voice, his humility, his courage. Messages poured in from every corner of the globe, from those who saw themselves in him, from those who felt inspired to chase their own dreams again. In homes far away from that stage, people cried, smiled, and believed a little more in the power of hope. For the boy, life would never be the same. Challenges still lay ahead: training, pressure, expectations, but now he faced them with something he had never truly had before: belief, not just in his dream, but in himself. He knew the road would not always be easy, but he also knew that his voice had carried him this far, and it would carry him further still. And as the night drew to a close, one truth remained clear. Talent can come from anywhere. Greatness does not ask about wealth or background. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, wrapped in humility, waiting for the right moment to be heard. That night, a poor Filipino boy didn't just perform on a stage, he reminded the world that hope is alive, that dreams are worth chasing, and that one voice, filled with truth, can bring an entire audience to its feet. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe again in the power of dreams, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring journeys like this. Because somewhere out there, another dream is waiting, and your support helps keep those dreams alive.